Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another unstoppable episode of History of the Marvel Universe. I am the Merry Marvelate, and today we're looking at the origins of Cain Marko, aka the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut first appeared in 1965's X-Men number 12 and number 13, following an encounter with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and the mysterious Stranger. Professor X's Cerebro machine detected an extremely powerful presence approaching. The X-Men charged out to shore up the X-Mansion's defenses, and upon returning, Professor Xavier told them that only one thing could elicit such a reaction from Cerebro: his own brother. Xavier explained that when he was a boy, his father, Brian Xavier, was killed in an explosion during a lab accident. Following Brian's death, his widow, Sharon, and his lab partner, Dr. Marko, grew close and married only a few months later, with Marko's son, Cain, moving in with them. Charles and Cain never really got along, with Cain being physically abusive to his new stepbrother. Things came to a head when Charles overheard Cain accusing his father of being responsible for Brian Xavier's death. Charles confronted the two, and in the resulting scuffle, Cain knocked over his father's dangerous chemical vials, causing an explosion. Dr. Marko was gravely injured in the blast, but in his final moments, he dragged his two children to safety, admitting to them that while Brian's death was an accident, he might have been able to prevent it if he'd tried. In the years that followed, Charles Xavier's mind-reading powers manifested, giving him an unnatural advantage in every endeavor, with the only outward sign of mutation being his teenage hair loss. Cain Marko, of course, was massively jealous of his brother's success. The last time Charles had seen his brother was while they were both enlisted to fight in the Korean War. While their squad was under enemy fire, Cain deserted his comrades and took shelter in a nearby cave. Charles gave chase to retrieve his brother, but within the cave, the two men discovered the ancient Temple of Cyttorak, containing an ancient ruby which Marko grabbed, imbuing his body with the power of the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak and transforming him into a human juggernaut. However, the explosions from the enemy shells caused the ceiling of the cave to collapse, and while Xavier escaped, the Juggernaut was buried. And now, years later, the Juggernaut had finally freed himself from the mountain of rubble. He easily pushed through the X-Mansion's defenses, and was even unhindered by Professor X's mental attacks, thanks to the psionic helmet generated by the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak. The X-Men seemed to be no match for their overpowering opponent, but with some help from the Human Torch, who Professor X had mentally contacted, they were able to remove the Juggernaut's helmet, leaving him susceptible to Xavier's mental attacks. Cain Marko was turned over to the authorities, but since he remained comatose, Xavier took custody of his brother and left him bound in a chamber below the X-Mansion. There he remained for months until Xavier concocted a machine to expel the demonic energy from his brother's body. The process backfired, however, and the Juggernaut was revived, temporarily gaining some of Xavier's telepathic power. And so when the X-Men returned home from an evening out, they were ambushed by the Juggernaut, who easily defeated them and escaped. As Marko battled the National Guard, Jean mentally linked with the unconscious Xavier, and, due to his mental link with his brother, Jean learned that hundreds of years prior, a man who would come to be known as the Ancient One also discovered the Temple of Cyttorak. The Ancient One was attacked by Zorak, a guardian left behind by Cyttorak, but he defeated his demonic foe, sealing it inside the ruby. Desperate for a method to defeat the Juggernaut, the X-Men used Cerebro to try and locate the Ancient One, if he was still alive, but were instead met by the astral form of his apprentice, Dr. Strange. With Strange's help, Cyclops and Marvel Girl were transported to the collapsed Temple of Cyttorak, where they used an incantation, taught to them by Strange, to enter the Crimson Cosmos within the Ruby of Cyttorak. Here, they defeated the outcast Zorak and obtained a prototype Ruby of Cyttorak. While the remaining X-Men held off the Juggernaut, Jean and Scott returned with the Ruby, which began to drain Marko of his power. Marco then mistook the prototype for the ruby which gave him his power and grabbed it, expecting to be re-energized, but instead was pulled into the Crimson Cosmos. In the years that followed, Kane Marco re-emerged several times, battling the likes of the X-Men, Doctor Strange, and the Incredible Hulk before permanently escaping his exile. Finally free, the Juggernaut later teamed up with the evil mutant Black Tom Cassidy, and the two became close friends and longtime partners in crime. But that's a story for another week. If you liked this video though, be sure to like, subscribe for more, click the bell icon for notifications, all that good stuff. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below, as well as links to my Twitter and Patreon. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!